Good morning, and thank you for attending the Fox Cities Employee Friendly Workplace Forum and insight into the 2020 Annual Benefits Survey results. My name is Jennifer Brown, and I am the Director of Existing Industry and Innovation for the Fox Cities Regional Partnership and the Chamber of Commerce. My work here is focused on economic and workforce development, but many of you know me for my passion for employee-friendly workplace initiative and the certification program. So I just want to thank all of you for being here today. But first and foremost, I want to thank our forum sponsor, Werner Electric Supply, for not only sponsoring the forum this morning, but also for being a champion for employee-friendly workplace, really since day one. And also for being an employee-friendly workplace certified employer. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. I also want to acknowledge our community partners, because without our community partners, we really would not be on this journey. And really with the annual benefits survey or with the employee-friendly workplace initiative and the certification. So I'd like to call attention to United Way Fox Cities, Child Care Resource and Referral, and First Five Fox Valley. So thank you to our community partners. They've really been an important part of our journey. So before I get into the agenda, I really want to go through some housekeeping issues, and it's a little bit of a list, so be patient with me. This webinar is being recorded and will be available. So if you want to revisit that or share this webinar, please visit foxcitieschamber.com. We will also have this slide deck and a summary of the benefits survey results, as well as an employee-friendly workplace guide, which will be posted online as well at foxcitieschamber.com following the event. All attendees today will also receive the same information via email. And then in addition, for those who participated in the benefits survey, please know that you will receive a full list of, or a full comprehensive results of the survey via email following this event. And anyone wishing to receive those results can go online and purchase those results as well, just by visiting our website. Anyone wishing to submit a question, please do so in the Q&A or chat feature, and submit those questions, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. So for the agenda today, of course, we've already welcomed you, and so thank you again for being here. And today I want to just briefly give you an employee-friendly workplace update. And I'd like to also share with you the 2020 benefits survey results overview. It is an overview, so it's just really a peek and a glimpse into the survey results. Again, the comprehensive results are available for review. And then we really want to share information about how to leverage the employee-friendly workplace certification as a tool for increasing employee well-being in your workplace, if that's a path you choose to go down. And our feature today is an expert human resource panel. So we're excited to get to that, and we will do so after this presentation. And then we'll close, and as I said, we'll get to questions and then we'll close. So thank you again for being here today. Last year at this time, we were talking about the benefit effect. Unemployment was at an all-time low. In fact, it was at this specific time, around October, we were at 3.3%. I don't think I need to tell most of you in HR, those of you who are in HR or anyone who's on this webinar, you know, there were more jobs available and candidates seeking new opportunities. Employers really need to differentiate themselves to attract and retain, and even retain talent. It was kind of a dog-eat-dog world, and we're looking for new ways to you know, find new talent. And one of those ways was comprehensive benefits necessary to stay competitive in the workplace. Offering the benefit packages, new benefits, was really key for many to find new ways to bring people into the workforce. For many employers, that meant, you know, a new reshaping of their workplace. So it might have been no longer that traditional workspace. It seems crazy sitting here talking about that now, but that's kind of where we were back then. So what happened in 2019 and where were we? We launched the Employee Friendly Workplace Initiative and Certification Program. So interestingly enough, as in the fall of last year, we were focused on what can we do to resolve some of those issues. How can we introduce a talent retention and attraction program that helps resolve some of these issues and either retains employees to the workplace primarily and attracts new employees to the region. The Fox City Chamber didn't do that alone. We brought together an advisory group, and we knew we needed to tap into a lot of talent and intellect in the area, and we did that with a group of individuals. And that group has certainly changed over the year, and we appreciate all of their support and help. And so I just wanted to make sure I called attention to that. And for those of you who don't know, the mission of Employee Friendly Workplace is to encourage employers in the Fox cities to adopt more employee-friendly workplace policies and practices in order to enhance work-life integration for a more supportive work environment. And the ultimate goal is to retain and attract really top talent in the Fox cities overall. And you know, why does it matter? You know, you might be asking, why does this matter? And maybe some of you know, some of you realize why this is important. And it matters because we need to take a look at the answer is investing in employee well-being. It's just real simple right here. Investing in employee well-being is really critical no matter where an employee is on their life journey. And this means extending beyond the physical aspect. So we all know that it's important to have, it may be important to have healthcare, but it's also important to support the financial aspects of an employee's of an employee, and it's also important to have the mental well-being in mind. But even more so, it's important, I shouldn't say even more so, but it's certainly even equally important to focus on engagement and make sure there's a meaningful opportunity, there's a meaningful and purposeful place for an employee to grow their experience in the workplace. We really need to support their journey overall as they are in that workplace and they have an opportunity to thrive and grow, because that's really what a supportive work environment does. It gives you a space to thrive and grow at work, and then you are successful at home as well. So we're offering that option with employee well-being and employee well-being in the employee-friendly workplace. So why does it matter? If an employee has a positive environment and an opportunity for growth, there's room to, obviously I said, thrive and be productive. And with a with a supportive work environment, there can be a negative cost to the organization. We see the return on investment, and we know the cost to specifically, we look at the 5 HR metrics that employers are most often analyzing, and those are hard cost, turnover, and absence. We can see that 70% and 44%, and we can also see that specifically absence is costing U.S. employers $530 billion a year. And turnover costs can be 100 to 150% of their salary. And so those are pretty significant hard costs. That is really, that impacts the bottom line. And then it also speaks to the stability of the workforce overall. And so those are measurements that our employers are following, especially in the HR world. I'm sorry. But then we'll take a look at the value on investment. And this is really about the dollars that are invested in the employee and more of the soft measures. And this is about the programs that are being offered that maybe it's not easy to measure the dollars, how the dollars are and cents are coming from the programs that you're investing in your employees. So this is the reason for investing in well-being. So maybe the wellness programs that you're offering, or the certain, other types of programs that the meaningful types of programs that are offering an opportunity for your employees to become more engaged. Employees where they're reducing turnover, opportunities where you're reducing turnover, and it's reducing burnout. Your employees are having less stress, so they're increasing productivity, and they're staying in the workplace or staying at your workplace, so you're having less need to hire more. And so these are measurements where we know the value in investment is important. An employee and providing that well-being and that employee-friendly workplace is critical for our employers in the Fox cities. And that's why employee-friendly was such, so important to our work, to our advisory group and our work group as we move forward and move through the process in 2019. And that's why when we took a look at it and we developed a certification tool and introduced it last year, we focused on policies and benefits that supported and enhanced the overall well-being. We really looked at what does that mean, what does that look like, what benefits do we need to include that supported the well-being of the employee, and those included paid leave, family leave, flexible work arrangements, health and wellness, because we know this doesn't work without healthcare. Employees want healthcare, they need financial support. And then we had perks that were part of that. And then again, circling back to the why, this is all pre-COVID. We really understood why this was important to employees. Even pre-COVID, employers were asking for a change in the workplace, and this has been, and again, I don't want to speak for any of the HR folks in the audience, but I certainly want to reiterate that we know employees were, asking for that flexible work environment, and they didn't want to take a job offer without a flexible work environment. And they knew that there were non-monetary ways to retain an employee. So 78% of respondents cited, flexible work as an opportunity to offer a way to retain an employee in a non-monetary way, even though I know there is a way to monetize that. But then 85% of businesses actually confirmed that a productivity increased due to greater flexibility. Again, these are all pre-COVID stats, but also reasons why the employee-friendly workplace initiative and certification tool was put in place and launched because it was so critical for us to have a vehicle and a pathway for us to help employers in the Fox cities with a talent initiative that really made sense and advanced in finding and retaining first and foremost, but then attracting employees to the workplace. So what were the results of our employee-friendly workplace initiative? To date, we have bronze certified is Werner Electric. I mentioned that I would say that again. So congratulations to Werner Electric, who is bronze certified. And we're very excited to report that they became bronze certified. Just recognizing them for all their great work and going through the process and working through all the categories that I mentioned, and really acknowledging that work-life balance is critical and putting their employees first. And with putting your employees first means that your customers come first, and that shows. So kudos to Werner Electric. And I don't want to steal any thunder because Tiffany Schrader is with us here today, and she'll share more about Werner Electric and how they have excelled. And then I also would need to recognize Jewelers Mutual Group, who is silver certified. And again, hats off to the Jewelers Mutual being silver certified, because certainly that is a feat in and of itself. Again, a very aspirational category. Jewelers Mutual does offer some paid maternity leave. And I do want to just read, I don't think anyone from Jewelers Mutual is with us today, but I do want to read a quote from Angela Murphy, who is active on the Employee Friendly Workplace Advisory Group. And her quote is, "The Employee Friendly Workplace certification continues to be an excellent reminder to put our employees first and act in their best interest." So I think it's that speaks for itself, certainly. But I think it's it's very important to congratulate our employers who did become certified. Of course, my next slide speaks to the fact that as we launched the Employee Friendly Workplace, just as we launched in 2020, unfortunately, our lives were significantly disrupted by COVID. No one's lives were more changed in anyone's situation, but COVID came and we all had to pivot, as the word has been used many times. And it's important that we all know that we've had to adapt. And that's certainly what we all did. And the workplace is no different. But it's also important to note that it's interesting how much the employee-friendly workplace and the changes that happen in the workplace really paralleled and aligned with the core need to focus on employee well-being and really the employee-friendly workplace. And that's just, and I'm not telling anyone anything they don't know, but the traditional workplace relaxed. Remote work became really a more commonplace, and employers just really learned to switch gears and move into that phase. Now, this is also acknowledging the fact that we know that about 60% of the workforce needs to be, whether it's at their station or in production, wherever the case they may need to be. Not all of our workforce can be remote, but those that can be remote and maybe weren't remote before, there was a transition, and they came in that space and they worked it out. And then increased flexibility. So flexible work arrangements became an opportunity for our employers to grow and learn and not maybe be in that traditional space as they once were. So that definitely is a way our employers adjusted and changed. And then we kind of moved into that space of work-life boundaries becoming blurred. And as the work-life boundaries blurred, stress became a bit more evident, right? So some of us had childcare concerns and issues. Those were at home taking care of our kids and working, or we maybe didn't have school. School was virtual, and we had to figure out how to become teachers. We had different roles. We had multiple roles and wore many hats, and that became very stressful. And then at the same time, productivity had to be redefined. Productivity maybe no longer was defined by hours, so maybe not butts in the seat or hours at the station. Rather, it was defined by outcomes and performance. Those are some new things that frame the workplace. And employers, even in my conversations with employers in the Fox cities, there is a more intense focus on employee well-being. So COVID really sort of, I don't want to say change the game, but it really has had an impact on how we focus our energy and our time and overall on our employees. So I'm going to transition. It may not be the smoothest transition, but I'm going to transition on some of our benefits survey results, specifically right now as they relate to COVID, because I don't think any of this will be a surprise. So how have our Fox Cities employers responded to COVID? And our Fox Cities employers responded to COVID, and I don't think this will be much of a surprise here as well. They responded in much of a way that was in need. 72% enhanced remote work options, 62% offered flexible hours, and 24% expanded virtual programs, and 23% added additional paid leave, and this is beyond the Family First cares. And this is in response to the question of benefits that were adjusted due to COVID. And then when we asked employers what policies they were assessing and or modifying due to COVID, you'll see in the same vein they were assessing whether or not they had a policy or they were modifying their policy for remote work. 76%, that was on their top of mind. 55% technology policies, 32% travel, and 12% paid leave once again. So I think that overall you'll see that I don't think there's any huge surprises, but certainly something to be aware of as we're looking at what's happening in the Fox cities in Northeast Wisconsin. So after I just gave that overview, I want to talk a little bit about, I don't want to seem too backwards, but I want to talk a little bit about who responded to the survey. So we had about 209 responses to the survey overall, and the survey was sent out to all of the New North counties, so that's 18 counties, really across northeastern Wisconsin. And we did have a great response despite survey fatigue. So 209 responses compared to last year, which was about 243. That was a great response in my opinion. So I just gave a couple of slides to give you an idea of what we had in response. And again, this is just a summary overall and a snapshot of what's in the benefits survey. So our demographics are in terms of the size, the employee size of respondents of the survey. And you can see that we just have a real good cross-section of respondents, with the largest being a smaller employer, but we still have a good cross-section here from the 500, the 50 to 500, and then even a good portion of over 1,000 employees. And then in demographics and industry, our largest respondents are in the manufacturing, from the manufacturing sector. About 25% in the manufacturing sector was our largest response. And then this year we also asked about the annual revenue. The annual revenue, we asked our companies to provide their annual revenue. So those that receive the entire results will be able to take a closer look at that. As it relates to the remainder of the questions, but certainly you'll see that 24% or 23% were in the $1 million to approximately $5 million range, and then 24% were in the $10 million to $50 million range. So then we move on to perception of benefits, and this question really just gives us an idea of how do those responding to the survey perceive the benefits that are offered in the Northeast Wisconsin and the Fox cities in general? Because primarily respondents were in the Fox cities area. Just so I make that clear, primarily our respondents were concentrated in the Fox cities. So overall, we wanted to gain an understanding of, maybe what did they perceive, what did our respondents perceive as some of the most important benefits. And even though we didn't get anything that was rising to really the cream of the crop, well, I will say that those benefits that were coming, to the rising as some of the very important benefits included wages and salary increases, at just over 50% of respondents, 50%. And then we had paid leave as very important. And then also there was a good portion from the workplace culture perspective. And then we had I think there was health insurance as well was coming in. So there's a good top four. But again, most of those are below the 50% mark. And you can see we still have some room to grow. In the area of not very important at all, we had student loan repayment So that's not really a benefit that's seen as very important, and probably some room to grow if our leadership and our HR folks are thinking of benefits that we can improve. We also didn't have, childcare and tuition reimbursement and advancement, excuse me. But again, these are all the perceptions of the person that's answering the survey itself. So in terms of employee well-being, I want to make sure that I bring this back to the aspect, or the thinking of what makes for the employee well-being. One of the components of employee well-being is making sure that our employees have the time to recharge their batteries, to spend with their families, or to spend time alone, to have vacation time, to make sure that there's sufficient time to take off, to take families to the doctor, to do whatever is necessary to take care of their home life. And one of those areas is whether it's vacation time, whether it's PTO. You should know the national average for vacation time, paid PTO, is 10 days off. For many, that doesn't seem like enough to allow for vacation time and to handle maybe family responsibilities. And for many, that seems like that's sufficient. However, we wanted to make sure that we brought attention to what we're hearing, a statistic is that 15 days is generally what employees feel that is necessary to have that time available with their families, and yet also take time away to handle responsibilities at home. So we asked the question, length of service. What is the length of service to receive 120 hours of annual PTO? And in the Fox cities, that still remains 4+ years. So that has not really remained unchanged. It's edging up a little bit in terms of percentage, about almost 20% in salary. As far as, we're seeing a little bit of an edging up. But otherwise, overall, it still is about 4+ years before we're getting to 120 hours of service overall. So that's something that to reflect and to think on. So that's important. That's an important piece of information. And then from the paid leave, or from another aspect of paid leave is the paid vacation time, and this is the first year of service. And whether or not you have 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks provided on the first year of service. And you can see overall, 1 week to 2 weeks is pretty much the average. And that's about 25, just over 25 and under 30% offered by most of the respondents. And then we took a look at paid parental leave. We know that offering parental leave creates time to bond with the baby, creates healthier children, fewer sick kids, and essentially, or eventually, fewer requests to take time off to care for kids down the road. And so we know how important that is. And we just think there's opportunity in the Fox cities for paid time off. And this is outside of short-term disability and FMLA. We just want to make sure that there's opportunity for growth, and we want to make sure that our Fox Cities employers are providing that best opportunity for our children to grow in a healthy environment and to keep our parents in the workplace, because parents are having to make the decision to spend money on childcare or to exit the workforce. And those are challenging decisions to make. And as you can see that most of our employers are not offering any paid maternity or paternity leave. So on flexible work arrangements, of course, the timing, we asked this question, over 80%, between 70 and 80% are offering flexible hours and work from home or remote options. But we also have, Other options that we did want to ask, that is also in the employee-friendly workplace certification, and that is variable work days. Those are being offered as well as work hours adjusted for summer. And then we have some snow days as well. You'll see over 30% of employers are offering some snow days. So health and wellness support. We know that this is one of the most sought after benefits for employees. And so this doesn't work, or it does work, of course, but we know many employees, this is an important benefit, right? The physical is an important aspect to employee well-being. So we know this is critical. So we asked employers the monthly cost of a medical and premium for family. And the national average is just over $1,700, and we know that that's what our employers are, at least we know that a majority of the respondents reported that that's in fact what they're paying, probably around the national average. And then we asked what the percent, we asked the percent of the employer paid premium. And I would say that a majority responded that they're paying about 60 to 79% of the employer paid premium, but there are some that are also paying between 80 and 99% of that premium. And that average, national average is 71%. Oops, I'm sorry. And then I want to just quickly mention the health and wellness support, because there's other components to the, the physical aspect. As I mentioned earlier, the value on investment. Other employers have wellness programs. You can see here that employers in the Fox cities and across the New North are offering wellness programs that, I don't think many of you probably aren't familiar with. Wellness information programs, resources, HRAs, they're across the board, our employers are offering. So I think those are important and they are being offered. Probably the most common one here is just information on wellness. And then financial support benefits. What we zeroed in here on this particular chart is we wanted to take a look at what employers are offering in terms of support for childcare. We know that childcare costs more than a college tuition, specifically in the state of Wisconsin. That's also in other states, but certainly here. And we certainly know that that's something that we wanted to call attention to. We want to learn how our employers might be playing a role, or what opportunity they might have to play a role. And that's also a part of our employee-friendly workplace, to learn how that might, how we might advance and provide a vehicle for that. So we do know that the most common benefit that's being offered is a flexible spending account, specifically for dependent care. We do know that COVID has had a significant impact on childcare. To the extent that 96% of parents are saying that, that they would like government and business leaders to provide financial support for childcare. And unfortunately, mom has been doing a majority of the extra work. 41% say mom has been doing a majority of the extra work for childcare at home. And 71% say their job has been impacted because childcare plans fell through last minute. So I don't think that's a surprise, but certainly something that we need to be aware of. So other financial support benefits, I would be remiss if I didn't mention salary. We know that, again, from the perception of benefits, salary is very important. Employers giving merit increases, I think are critical to our employees. And so in the Fox cities and in the New North region, 80%, almost 80% are providing merit increases, and that happens, as needed, and that's to be expected. And then we're also giving, I also asked the question, employer gives cost of living increase. And There's a little bit of a mixed bag response, but you know, some a good response was about 60% said they were not giving a cost of living increase at this time. So then the perks, we wanted to just take a look at a bunch of different perks, the discretionary benefits. We're calling them discretionary benefits, but some are beyond that. Some are financial support as well, to just get a better understanding of what employers are offering right now. And what's rising to the top is tuition reimbursement. So we see a lot of employers offering tuition reimbursement. So that's really important. And then employee recognition programs are also rising to the top in terms of perks. And then, as I mentioned in the beginning, a supportive work place where an employee feels recognized, valued, and engaged is really critical in terms of their success in the workplace, and then overall success at home. So we know that acknowledging employee achievements with a recognition program was important for us to pull out, data for that. So we did that. And you can see here that most employers that responded are recognizing employees based on length of service. The second highest recognition was based on the individual or team performance goals. And then we also wanted to know how were they rewarding those employee achievements. And you can see it's pretty close here, but gift card or credit card kind of rose to the top. But you can also see there's cash bonuses, merchandise or apparel. So there's a really diverse group there. So I'm just going to take a little time because I know I'm getting close to my wrap up time here. So, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we know as COVID is here, what the future of work is probably remote work is here to stay, but not for all. We're probably going to live in a hybrid environment. Remote work can feel very isolating, and we want to kind of have some folks be able to get back into the office. We know that there's e-learning and virtual meetings that are probably going to be here to stay in some respect. And we'll have some work-ready homes. There's accelerated automation and technology, potentially changes to design, just for health and safety and commercial real estate. And then we already know there's investment in well-being. And so what does that mean in terms of overall? Are we done investing in bringing on new employees? I already mentioned about the comprehensive benefits package in terms of attraction of new employees, the talented attraction and retention of new employees, or attraction of new employees. And you can see here, I wanted to just insert this slide to show you what our this is the entire New North of the unemployment rate and how it's just, I'm just quickly looking at this because I want to make sure I'm staying on time here, how it's changed over the months. And you can see that as of September, we're cruising right back down. And so the search for talent is not going to get any easier. So my point in bringing that up really is just that the focus on well-being is critical now more than ever, but it certainly still remains critical. And we are hearing now at the Chamber that we need to make sure that we are concentrating on talent initiatives, both recruitment and retention initiatives. And that's the reason why we continue to focus on the certification with the certification itself. And in 2020, we have made some updates to the certification itself. There's new benefit criteria, expanded categories, examples of success, 182 additional points, and access to more resources and new partners. And I'm sorry, that's, and then additionally, I just wanted to make sure that, as you probably saw a theme as I went through the presentation, we focused on these three categories: paid leave, health and wellness, and financial support. And the certification process includes bronze, silver, platinum, and gold. And the path to certification is an application, an online application. And we can learn more about that as we connect, and I'm happy to connect with you. And the benefits of certification really are, you know, you can certainly connect with Werner and Jewelers, but we have a fantastic media kit which helps you to bring your certification to the next level. But we also have resources and experts that are helping us have conversations about what employee well-being looks like and how we can advance our discussions throughout the year. And who is eligible? Fox Cities employers of any size in all industry sectors. And you can learn more on our website. We do have a drop down about employee friendly, where you can also access information about the benefits survey. And the regional benefits are that we're focused on retention and attraction. And we do hope to grow businesses and the economy. And we don't want to, our purpose is not to steal talent, but to share talent and create healthier employees and healthier Fox Cities. So I think I kind of rushed through the last part, but our feature today is a expert HR employer panel. So I'm really excited that they have agreed to share with us how their organizations have responded and adapted really to COVID during this really unconventional time, and how they've been able to improve or work through the employee experience, because employees have been significantly impacted during this time. And so with us today, I have Tiffany Schroeder, the Human Resource Manager at Werner Electric Supply. I have Bev Graybaugh, the Human Resource Director with the Boys and Girls Club of the Fox Valley. Holly Lifke, Executive VP and Chief Human Resource Officer with the Bolt Company. And Amy Otis, the Vice President of Human Resources at Capital Credit Union. And the panel this morning will be moderated by Josh Kilgus with United Way Fox Cities. And I want to thank Josh for moderating this morning, and I will be handing it over to Josh now. And thank you, panel, for being with us this morning and for offering all of your expertise. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, so as many of you might know, I used to be part of the employee-friendly workplace pre-COVID, and my career has taken me in a slightly different direction. But when I was an active part of this group, we had focused on ways that companies could adapt to employees' individual needs, most of those being occasional circumstances that we had to adapt to. And it seemed like some of the tactics that we talked about, working from home, ways to address mental health issues, flexibility, was unobtainable by some companies, or maybe not a priority at that time. And then COVID happened, and we are affected as workplaces, communities, as a world in this. So we're no longer talking about individuals or occasional types of circumstances. I'm asking you these questions from my home office, a phrase that I'd never thought that I'd say, and it looks like many of you are working from home as well. I just want to know, how did your companies adapt to your work environments to address the health and safety needs of employees through this COVID crisis? Is there anybody who wants to start with that question? How did you adapt? Let's go with Tiffany to start.
Yeah, so, I mean, as we know, we look back to March, and I think it's almost like a revolution. And it's really accelerated what we were trying to do as employers, or what we were trying to wrap our head around of what we wanted to do. You know, we've done everything from the virtual work. We have about 75% of our employees all working remotely, and then advancing our technology to fit their needs. Everyone's situation is different. They have different internet situations, different office setups. So really trying to prepare our employees for something that was entirely new to us as an employer. We do have a small portion of employees that have to work here in our location just because of the nature of their role. So we've kind of switched around some things in the workplace here, changing our environment to adapt. And that's everything from designating different break rooms, and we have makeshift break rooms throughout our facility to kind of separate work groups. We have designated entrances. We've got the masks and the gloves that are supplied, extra sanitation and cleaning practices. We've even changed like our travel policy as to what that looks like, our visitors, changing what the protocols and guidelines there. Even the temperature checking. So that was something that we'd implemented a few months ago, changing a policy where it was a mandatory self-administered temperature check in order to enter our facility. So those are some of the things listed, and I'm sure we'll kind of get into a little more of the as we move along, but that's what kind of comes to mind initially with Warner.
Thanks, Tiffany. Holly, it looked like you raised your hand for that. I imagine, like Tiffany, the Bowl Company is not necessarily all able to work from home. I don't think that buildings get built from home offices. How did the Bowl Company adapt?
Yeah, it's tough to swing a hammer from home. But it's been a very interesting transformational process. And like Tiffany, I really think it's allowed us to accelerate some of our maturation around flexibility for our employees and in the workplace. Our projects are throughout the country, and our offices are across the country too, more west than east, but we also go to the south. So as we started looking at what we thought the needs were, we really felt we needed to do a couple things: take care of our employees, take care of the business, and take care of our customers. And that sounds really simple, but if you remember the heightened state of panic at the time, there were people just, you got to shut everything down, you have to stop everything. And the reality is, while we don't know how long this pandemic response is going to endure, it is a moment in time in the big picture. And we need to make sure we're taking care of our customers, because if we don't, then we won't have the business to take care of our employees on the long term as well as the short term. So that meant for us working with customers to understand which projects they would want us to continue working on. So there were projects where the owner that we work for was shutting down the project, delaying the project, but there were a lot of others where if you did not follow through on your commitment, you were going to have a problem long term. So that was kind of an interesting twist for us. And when you throw in things like San Francisco, who was kind of ahead of the curve on a lot of the municipal actions and requirements we had to comply with, and then Oklahoma City, and just the way the pandemic has morphed throughout the country, it's really meant a lot of adaptation. So we formed a task force and a core group. The core group is probably about 6 people in the organization, but then we have this task force that includes representation from all of our offices and projects, because just getting your arms around what those employees needed really changed, and what the compliance requirements were. So our whole thought process was meet those needs, try to anticipate those needs, and then be adaptable and flexible. Certainly PPE, supply chain issues existed, but also how do you travel an entire group of union employees to a site in Louisiana and help them feel safe and comfortable? So we had the added dimension of having unions that we worked with, a variety of unions throughout the country, and our staff. So trying to be flexible, but understanding you don't have all the same options for all of those was really pretty tricky. And like Tiffany, I'm sure we'll get down into the detail, but it was really having that overall understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, and then getting the cycle of feedback in and understanding what's happening so we could make good decisions and support our employees, and take the feedback when we stubbed our toe a little bit too.
Excellent, thank you. Holly, Bev, did I see you raise your hand for this question?
Yeah, similar to what Tiffany and Holly have already said is, allowing that flexibility. Our, our workforce is unique, and some of our people can work from home, and with those, we've allowed them and ensured that they have the technology that they need, the equipment that they need, the chairs that they need, whatever they need to be able to work from home in a comfortable manner. And we've really encouraged them to stay home during this, so to avoid that exposure. But then on the other side, we have our staff that are directly working with the youth in our community. So we've put a lot of safety precautions in place there to keep our staff safe there. The temperature check as the kids are coming in, and all the questionnaires, really ramped up the cleaning and the sanitation, provided the PPE to them. So we're kind of working with both sides as far as the remote, but still needing to stay on site also.
Thank you. And Amy, like Bev, I imagine your business often has people who need to come on site in order for you to do that business. So I'd be interested to know, how did you adapt for your employees, particularly with that circumstance?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you
Okay,
just fine.
I had to switch to my headset. There's a truck outside picking up leaves, of course, right now. Yeah, we, of course, we've had our lobbies closed for a number of months now. So we're only taking members in person by appointment for things that they really need to come in for. So doing the typical checks before having members come in and enter the building. But with our drive-ups remaining open, we've had to service members with different things than we normally would through the drive-up. So that poses some added stress for the tellers. Those that do have to work in person don't have the work from home opportunity. We've put plexiglass in all of our teller stations, like our MSR offices and conference rooms. Like everyone else said, providing the masks and other PPE items. But with the tellers having a different level of workload and different type of workload, we've tried to keep their stress maintained by alternating them. You don't need the entire teller staff in your drive up, but put, however many people you can in there for a couple hours, but then rotate them out, let them work on something else, maybe helping to answer phone calls, things like that, to take the overflow from our comm center. So just kind of redeploying employees. But one thing that we were able to do by doing that is to continue to serve our members well, but also keep all of our employees working, unless they were sick, of course. But we did not have to reduce anybody's hours or anything of that nature.
Thank you. For my next question, so Jennifer had showed in the survey that many companies were expanding or adapting some of their benefits that they already had or maybe planned to have, and some of you touched upon it a little bit. But I'm wondering, some of those specific responses were maybe additional time off, whether it be for sick time, maybe it is for mental health related issues, flexible work schedules when maybe it wasn't an option pre-COVID. Have any of your organizations adapted or expanded some of those different time off flexibility type policies in order to adapt to COVID? Amy, it looked like you raised your hand.
Yeah, because we do have a large number of employees that we have probably at least a third of our employees working from home, but there's quite a few of ours that do need to work in person with members and to be able to do their jobs. So for a while during the Safer at Home Act or order, we did have hazard pay. And so we did pay an additional per hour hazard pay on top of their normal pay for both those working in the office and at home, actually, to encourage everyone to do their best to stay healthy, continue working. We have a wellness reimbursement policy, and we expanded that during the pandemic. So we were reimbursing for things that maybe didn't fall under it before, because now people were looking for new and creative ways to keep wellness initiatives going. And we do have a very active wellness program at Capitol. So we really focused a lot of our wellness initiatives on mental health. We had already but really had started to add a lot of mental health, wellness education and initiatives into the mix prior to the pandemic, but that's really been our focus throughout the pandemic, is making sure that we're educating employees, providing resources, especially our employee assistance program through ERC. They've been awesome at doing virtual appointments and being available for employees during this time. And we've continually reminded employees and their family members that ERC is there to help through all the different stress that we've had through this.
Something very important to keep in mind. Holly, I think I saw you wanted to answer.
Actually, I think her answer covered it really well.
Excellent. Anybody else want to take that question? Anything that you've expanded or adapted during this time? Tiffany? And then we'll go to Beth.
So I would echo, what Amy had said with appreciation pay, the extra flexibility, the mental health focus. And I think during this pandemic, we also have a number of other issues that are going on or hot topics. One being the racial equality. So we've actually accelerated our D&I program as well. That was something that was originally going to be the focus for 2020, but it definitely heightened as far as an awareness and the extra trainings that we were providing to our managers or employee force.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, I mean, I'll mirror, what everybody else has already said, but one thing that we've really adapted is we've always been very proud of the training program that we've provided to our employees. Every month we typically close down the clubs and provide training for all of our employees and give them the tools and the knowledge that they need. We've adapted that by doing it virtually. So a lot of work behind that and a lot of training on getting people up on the Zoom and interacting. We've also kept our all staff meetings going and our continuous improvement meetings going. It's not always easy doing it virtually, but we are adapting and providing that support to our employees to be able to keep that going for them.
Thank you. So when I've been at the table for work-related issues, pre-COVID, post-COVID, there's many issues that often are common among barriers to employment. And one of those issues that constantly comes up is childcare. And childcare is something that we talked about a lot for employee-friendly workplace and encouraging people or companies to help the community address that. I believe I saw in the survey that Jennifer had shared that 71% of employees are dealing with some sort of childcare related issues. I'm wondering if you have experienced this individually in human resources and if you've taken any steps to help adapt to that during this time. Amy?
Yeah, we've definitely had a good portion of employees impacted by the childcare issues. We created a request form so that we could make sure that we're getting all the necessary information, because while we want to accommodate that employee, we also want to put some accountability on them to check out all of their options and resources. Because it impacts other employees too, and we have to take into consideration everyone's stress and what they're dealing with right now. So we actually did some research ourselves and put a listing of resources out on our intranet, so employees had different places they could look to that might be options for them for childcare. And then of course pay the childcare pay through the EFMLA and that type of thing when they do need off in the end. But we've also adjusted hours in positions where it was possible. So for example, a mortgage underwriter may not necessarily have to work during their 9 to 5 hours. They may be able to do their job early in the day and later in the day and still help their children out, during those hours where they need that child care or school help.
Beth?
Yeah, I mean, we have, when we hear of people who have some childcare concerns at home, one, we definitely offer the flexibility if they are working from home. Many times we're in meetings and all of a sudden this little face pops up and, we all say hi and we give everybody grace because it happens, right? But from human resource perspective, I'm also making sure that they are aware of their rights under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. And that if they need to take time off to take care of a child who can't be in school or can't be in childcare because of COVID, that they have, those rights to them and they're able to get paid through that. If it's at all possible, we keep them working, but I also want them to know what their rights are and I make sure I share that with them.
Absolutely. And Tiffany?
Yeah, I think it's encouraged all of us to be discovering a new set of vulnerability within ourselves and each other, that we are all people. We have things that are going on beyond work. As you can see in our screens, you know, personally, I was impacted by this. So I've got the set of twins, as you guys might have remembered when I was participating in the panel last year. And I never imagined myself talking to my boss, my one-on-one, as my little girl sitting on my lap. It's a unique experience, and then to be able to support others through that journey as well. But when this all had happened, the FFCRA benefits weren't initially rolled out, and there was a lot of, I think, worry and anxiety over how am I going to do this as a parent. And we, as a company with Warner, we had rolled out a 2-week payment, like a paid benefit, where if you just can't, you don't have childcare, we don't know what this FFCRA thing is going to look like. This is something available to you that you can rely on. So, I mean, similar messaging as to being flexible with the hours on when you work them, having a part-time schedule, or, you know, just being as accommodating as possible. And everyone's situation is a little different, so being understanding of that. But I think just being understanding and trying to be, I guess, as adaptable as possible, and showing that vulnerability.
Yes, Holly.
I would just add too, both situations been a little bit different. We've really leaned on doing the right thing because we don't fall under the same act. So how do we make sure to do the right thing, and how do we handle that? I was very proud of the fact, as an organization, we still have a traditional vacation and sick time policy. I never thought I would love keeping that, but after this, we will be keeping that for a long time. Because one of the things that really allowed us to do is take an existing policy. We made sure everybody had 80 hours available before any federal regulation came in board, just so people felt like they could breathe a sigh of relief, and they could use that if they were homeschooling or whatever happened to be going on there. As we came around to the fall, and we've continued to monitor every week where people are on that. So we know if there's a certain situation, we can reach out and figure out what that adaptable solution is. But that anxiety level, particularly as we came into the fall school year, we found just having an opportunity for people to connect, a lot of this feels very isolating. So we want people to come together and understand that you're not alone. As a company, we're going to be here to help you, but there are also others you can talk to. So my head of organizational development began hosting a weekly listening session. And it's everything from what are you dealing with to, okay, how do we get our mindset around the opportunity instead of the stress and negativity we're dealing with? And that's been going on for probably about 3 or 4 months. And then as we came into about 2 weeks before a lot of schools started opening for us, theoretically opening, it really shifted to kind of this for that. And now we're shifting to some other areas. So I think when you think about there's the tangible way you can help, but then there's also the emotional and mental side. We certainly promote our EAP and those resources for people. We're trying to give our supervisors and managers, through a monthly toolbox call that we have, the tools so that they can have what might seem like a weird conversation. You know, gee, now I've got Tiffany with her twin on her lap. You know, how do I deal with that as a manager? And it's really developed, I like the word vulnerability, but also an empathy and a mutual support that at the end of the day, we're all people just trying to get through. And let's help each other with it.
It seems like a good time to put in a plug. I'd be remiss to say that if there are issues that people are dealing with, mental health and childcare, there's not always answers to everything. But if it goes beyond the things that you have, United Way's 211 is that 24/7 call center that you can refer people to and help them with those things. I'm also going to take the opportunity to have that transition into my next question. Holly talked about keeping some of those benefits after this because of what we've seen. Some of it, we've talked about the benefits that we've maybe been forced, for lack of a better term, to implement to help deal with COVID. Are there other examples of things that you see now or have implemented now that you think or are considering might continue post-COVID? Yes, hi.
It might be obvious at this point, but certainly remote work and probably that hybrid. The organization I was with prior to joining Bolt, we had gone through a whole transformation in creating the opportunity for telecommuting. Bolt being a bit more traditional organization, that was a little outside of our purview, and we've just leapfrogged. So I feel like, you know, never waste a good crisis. So I feel like we've kind of leapfrogged maybe 5 to 10 years on that space. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to work remotely forever, but our president, myself, a number of us are like, there's some benefit to having a couple days in the office and a couple of days in my home office too.
Excellent. Anybody else for that question? Things that you'll keep, perhaps, that you've seen, without maybe making any sort of commitment to employees. All right, I'll move on to the next question then. Finding talent has been something that the Chamber has always been there to try to assist companies with. And I've heard some talk about companies who have gone remote and maybe are keeping some of this remote, looking for talent in different ways. So when we look at the future of finding talent, has that changed because of COVID, and in what way? Amy.
I really do think this is one area that will change how we do things going forward. We basically did all of our hiring and recruiting in person. And of course, for a little bit, we put recruiting on hold, but we decided pretty quickly that we couldn't continue that because this wasn't going away quickly. So we started training managers on how to use Zoom for interviews and things of that nature. And it works very well. And I think as our members are becoming, more and more members are using electronic services and things of that nature at this point, I would venture to guess that a lot of them, now comfortable with it, will continue to use that, which may increase the number of employees we need in positions in which they're working virtually with members. And so it's a great way to assess their skills at communicating with members through video and through electronic methods by doing the interviewing that way. So I really do think we'll continue our recruiting efforts in a different format or using some of both. I think with the work from home continuing, I think it really expands your candidate pool as well. It may be much easier to hire people that don't necessarily live in your area. So it will probably open up more possibilities that way too.
Somebody else want to take that question, Bev?
Yeah, I agree. Having more of the virtual interviews has definitely increased for us. We have also changed the platforms. Being a smaller organization, I was always very proud and very happy that I could do everybody's onboarding in person. And I always loved that because I got to meet everybody and know who they were. That part has been hard for me to give up, but we have changed the platforms and got a very user-friendly system for people to do their onboarding remotely, sitting at their computer. And then also, yes, getting with we have the Microsoft Teams and teaching them how to do that for any additional HR onboarding that they do need a little bit more face-to-face. But recruiting overall, it was mentioned in the presentation, it's hard to find staff. Unfortunately, the staff that we need them on site, so we don't have the pleasure of offering them remote work because those kiddos in our buildings just need that support. So it's, recruiting is still a struggle, but but the onboarding and things like that have definitely leapfrogged to be a little more easier.
And Holly?
I have done something that if you'd asked me a year ago, I would not have done. And that is I have filled 2 positions on my staff that will join us in November, and they will never move to or live in Appleton. And there's been an expectation that if you're in a corporate function, you're in Appleton. So I've got one individual who will be in Ohio, and a direct report of his will be in Kansas City. So for me, I tend to want to push the envelope with a few things anyway, but these are people that I know they're the right people for our team in an area that's very difficult to recruit for, union and labor relations. And it opened up an opportunity. I had to be a little persuasive because, it's something new to the organization, but I'm really excited about that. I think it's just going to remove some boundaries that we may have had before. but you do have to have the right leaders that are willing to do that and can get comfortable building relationships this way. Like Bev mentioned, we did not all of our onboarding in person because we had the remote offices, but we flipped that switch on recruiting and onboarding really quickly and are getting really good responses. I think it's allowed us to ensure a more consistent experience for our employees coming on board.
All right, anything to add? Tiffany?
I don't think so. I mean, those are the top things that come to mind too. It's really removed those barriers as to where you're pulling those candidates from, and it's a really exciting opportunity. Again, as Holly had mentioned, just being aware of how you're building those relationships, because I think it could be a double-edged sword of, this is a great opportunity, but it might go sour quickly if you're not addressing it or giving the right of attention what that relationship needs as a new hire.
So every time that I get to do one of these panels, I look at the questions and the time, and I wonder, am I going to be very, very short on that time? And I panic on that end. And I see that we're getting to the end of this time. So there's some questions that we didn't get to. I just wanted to wrap this up by saying, is there anything that anybody wants to add about this that we didn't get to? It might be some of your biggest challenges that we didn't talk about. Or even some of the silver linings of this that we've talked about through this. Holly, it looks like you want to go first.
I don't have to go first, but it's something that we're starting to see, and I'm curious if other panelists have. We've run into some, I think we all know inherently that not everybody is suited to telecommuting. There is a skill set that goes with that, a discipline that not everybody brings to the table. So we're working through situations where maybe questionable performance was present prior and it's become very apparent. So we're dealing with those. But what we're discovering more recently are new grads, recent college graduates that maybe because they graduated in May or December of last year, never had the opportunity to really build some of those behaviors and have that support of a supervisor or peer group in the office. And now they're struggling. And I'm really concerned about that next group of employees coming into the workplace, and how do we help them be successful and still have the autonomy necessary? How do we help them do that? And is anybody else running into those kinds of situations as we bring new students into the workforce?
That is an interesting perspective for that I haven't thought of. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
We have had a couple positions come open, and right now we've decided not to fill them until we can get our heads wrapped around really solidly how are we working remotely and how do we support these positions to work remotely. So we will be hiring, but we just put a pause on them initially just to make sure that we can have that good plan in place, the good onboarding, the good training, to help them succeed, to make sure that they succeed, but at the same time not adding any unnecessary exposure.
And Tiffany?
I wouldn't say we necessarily ran into that specific challenge of the new grads, but we actually had an acquisition through all of this. So we brought in, a fairly large group, considering that's how many new hires in one bundle that have to get acclimated to Warner and who we are. And we did ask that, at least for the first few weeks, that they work in the location so we can get to know them. And we were fortunate enough to have an employee population that's existing here that was able to go over there and willing to go over there to get them acclimated and trained. So, I mean, that's an interesting perspective. We haven't run into that necessarily yet, but I can definitely see where that would be an issue.
We have a very robust internship program. So we've seen it there too, where they're not on site in the construction space, but they're in more support space where think about what these students are dealing with. They're going to school virtually. So they're missing a lot of that experience. And now they're taking on an internship virtually. Here's your laptop, see you at onboarding. And it's just, I think it's a very different experience for them. They're struggling through, and how do you bring that balance? Thank you for your thoughts. I appreciate it.
So I know that this is the point where we are going to open it up for questions. Jennifer, it looks like a few came up in the question and answer there. Are you all prepared to ask those on your end?
I sure can, Josh. So first we have a question from Brittany. and I always slaughter Brittany's name, so I'm just going to say Brittany. Specific to manufacturing, how was your onboarding for hourly employees changed? So even if it's not manufacturing, how is your onboarding to hourly employees changed? And how do you keep the welcome feel, especially if those employees are not able to work from home? If maybe one person wants to take that, that would be best suited for an hourly.
Jennifer, I'm not sure if this answers the question, but as we were just talking about a little bit, we shifted our onboarding. We've eliminated cross transferring amongst branches. We have quite a few branches, so with new hire training, the piece that from HR that we go in and normally cover with new hires, we have been able to do that virtually. We have employees that were either in a training room that were able to keep social distancing by limiting the number of them, or they even were right at the branch they were going to be working at and coming together as a group like we are today. So while it's not in person, we have had really good success with at least using video and being able to see people and come as close as we can to doing the things that we've always done with them through video conferencing.
Has anyone had any experience with employees that maybe didn't have access to a electronic device and had to do some onboarding that way, or has that not been a problem?
We've had it where people don't always have the webcam on their computer, and sometimes that feels a little different, you know, having a conversation or going through a benefit session over the phone rather than a virtual face-to-face session. But I guess it's always the hope that hopefully some gradual interactions will build that relationship. So we've had some struggles with the video cam capabilities, but other than that, for the most part, we've been able to make it work.
Thank you. I'll ask the next question. What are your recommendations for best practices in communicating with employees and follow-up to positive COVID-19 tests with an employer's workforce while protecting the affected/infected employees' privacy and confidentiality rights?
That's been, probably as everybody knows, that's been a really tricky space to navigate. And what we've largely done is made sure to communicate. We have a whole protocol and process in place for us to be notified that there's a potential exposure. And through that, we evaluate the facts to determine if there in fact has been close contact or not. Some are easy. You've got a positive test, easy. We always go back and make sure that we know if they've been following protocols for physical distancing, wearing of masks, depending on what the location, everything's been expected there. Based upon that information, we contact or communicate either with the job site or with the office that there has in fact been a positive, if that's what you end up having. It's such an interesting situation, like so much of employee privacy. We can't tell you who it was, but they can tell you anything that they want. So what we find ourselves doing is indicating, for example, there has been a positive case in this area of the Appleton office. We have done this, this, and this, and we believe the exposure is minimal. Or if we have to actually do contact tracing, we touch base with those individuals, but we can't disclose the individual. We have employees that have gotten upset about that. If they'd known it had been this person, then they would have chosen to stay out of the office and such. So we've been trying to take feedback and adjust our approach, but we have also tried to walk that line between reassuring people that we've put the cleaning procedures in place, you know, that the space has been sanitized, you know, whether we think it's a significant exposure or not. But then we've also done things such as reclosing offices that we had previously opened. The Appleton office, we had a minimal staff that if you chose to work in the office, you could from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And a little bit after that, as we saw the spikes come up, we chose to close the office again, except absolutely necessary to be in there. And we believe because of a couple positives we truly prevented a significant exposure in the office. But long story short is it's a fine line. I think we have to provide assurance to our employees, but at the same time protect that confidentiality. But I'm shocked at how often that employee is very happy telling the whole world. And sometimes we'll ask that, are you comfortable with us indicating who? And usually people are pretty good because they've been on the other side too. I'm curious about others' experiences.
Amy, I think, go ahead.
One thing that we did a little while into this, which I feel has been very helpful, because I'm sure like my HR team, everyone in HR has been overwhelmed and feel like COVID has been another full-time job. But I feel like it's not only helped us, it's helped the employees and managers as well, is we published a few documents to our intranet, and one of them is a COVID decision tree. And it basically walks anybody who wants to right through, here's the filters we're running each of these situations through. And I feel like having that knowledge, knowing exactly what tool we're using to make these decisions, gives employees a little bit more information, which gives them a little bit more comfort to know that we are always running each situation through these filters and what those are.
So I would echo both what Holly and Amy had said. I think communication has really been key through all of this. Having consistent, timely communication that will address issues hopefully as proactively as possible so that you can build that trust in your employee population. And when you have that trust, if employees are out or if they re-enter the workforce, because it's just as difficult when they re-enter because people usually line up the dots as to why they were out and okay, is it safe to return? Can I stand by them? They just touched that. So I think having that trust built with your employees that they know that you're keeping everyone safe, and when people return, they're actually safely able to return.
So we're gonna wrap up in just a second. I want to squeeze in one last question. If we can have maybe one person answer, that would be fantastic. If an employee states that they were in contact with a positive case outside of work, what is your protocol? Do you automatically quarantine them or require documents, and are they then paid?
I can answer that one for us. Yeah, if somebody comes forward and says they were exposed to somebody who tested positive, yes, we would send them home or make sure they stay at home, and would need to go through the quarantine. And depending on circumstances, I mean, there's some people who test positive and can work from home and they continue to work from home. Otherwise, again, I would offer them the emergency sick leave that came through with the act and follow up with them on that.
Does anyone else have a burning desire to answer that question, or we? Fantastic. Okay, we answered all of the questions, and I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for participating in our panel discussion. I appreciate you sharing all of your experiences and certainly some best practices, and hopefully you have many more best practices to share in the future. I also want to take a moment to thank Josh Kilgus for moderating our panel. You've done a fantastic job, as always, and so we appreciate your time. And I also want to thank everyone for joining us this morning for our Employee Friendly Workplace Forum, once again in 2020, and the benefits survey results. Please know that you will receive all of the information. If you signed up to participate today, you will receive everything via email, and you can also find everything online as well. And again, this session is being recorded, so you can, if you are interested, you can certainly rewatch it again or share it with someone in your office if you're interested in sharing that as well. Thanks again, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Goodbye.